Welcome to the Exploring Unschooling podcast. I'm Pamela Riccia, unschooling mom and author, bringing you interviews, information, and inspiration about unschooling and living joyfully with your family. You can find the episode show notes, your free Exploring Unschooling ebook, and lots more information at livingjoyfully.ca. And here's the show. Hello, everyone. I'm Pamela Riccia, and this is episode number 45 of the podcast. It's the 9th of November, 2016, as I record this intro. In this episode, I chat with Glenna McAulay about unschooling on a budget. Glenna is an unschooling mom to 2 daughters, and both she and her husband have a wonderful perspective on living the unschooling lifestyle within their means. It was a very fun conversation, and I hope you find some inspiration and some creative ways to get the most out of your disposable income. Things have been pretty quiet around here this week. I'm happily working away on quite a few projects. Now remembering that I'm often most excited when I'm working on multiple things. Now, sometimes that seems counterintuitive. It seems that I'd get more things actually finished if I concentrated on one thing. But what really happens for me is when I focus on just one thing, my productivity nosedives. And because I am truly excited about all these projects, moving between them keeps my momentum going. Granted, it will be super nice when I can finally share them with you guys, but soon. Or, depending on your definition, soon-ish. A big thank you to all the people supporting the show on Patreon, especially to new patron Natasha Allen Zaki. I love how it feels like we're a team, happily sharing information with anyone who's curious to learn more about unschooling and ways to live this wonderful lifestyle with their family. You guys rock. And if you'd like to support the show, even for as little as $1 a month, check out the Exploring Unschooling page at patreon.com. That's patreon.com/exploring unschooling. Now this week, I wanted to share a quote from the episode. Glenna said, I think it's really all about conversation. I mean, we have conversations all the time. We have dad home so much of the time because we've chosen that. Now, what that means is that we don't have a huge ton of disposable income, so we have to make the choices of what's important to our family. I wanted to comment on how often the idea of having conversations with our kids came up in my conversation with Glenna. With unschooling, it's about connecting and conversing with our children. And when we talk about unschooling on a budget, it's still the same answer, connecting and conversing with our children. Unschooling brings with it some incredible paradigm shifts that in turn fundamentally change our relationships with our children. It's no longer children living with their parents, but a family living together. And as such, we all work together to figure out creative ways to meet both our needs and our dreams. Step by step, conversation by conversation. There is no one right way. But I loved hearing some of the ways that Glenna's family are doing it. And I hope you enjoy our conversation too. Hi everyone, I'm Pamela Riccia from livingjoyfully.ca, and today I'm here with Glenna McAulay. Hi Glenna.
Hello.
Hello. It is wonderful to have you on the show. I met Glenna and her family many years ago now, and we've kept in touch through unschooling conferences and gatherings and Facebook. It's been so cool watching her girls grow up through all these little snippets of life. And this week, Glenna has graciously agreed to chat with me about unschooling on a budget. In my experience, it's about the money and it's also a mindset thing. So Glenna and I are going to dive into that as well as brainstorm lots of ideas for low-cost unschooling. But to get us started, Glenna, can you share with us a bit about you and your family and how you came to unschooling?
Sure. We actually, Jim and I, decided that our children, our future children, would not attend school long before we had kids.
Wow.
And then we didn't really think about it anymore because it wasn't relevant, right? We didn't have kids. So then we had Persephone, and, we just were living our life with her. But when she was 3 years old, everybody kept saying to me, is she going to go to school next year? Is she going to go to school next year? And I panicked. I was like, oh my goodness, this is something I haven't even thought about. And I don't know really what happened, but we ended up forgetting our plan, and honest to goodness, we were researching like international baccalaureate schools and
Uh-huh.
like from one extreme to the other, right? And then all of a sudden we were like, wait a minute, we've already discussed this. The kids aren't going to, or the kid is not going to school. Done. And so we didn't really, you know, think about it again until she turned 6, which is the compulsory school age, right, in Ontario.
Mhm.
And then, but nobody hassled us. So at that point, we had Olive, who was about 3.5 then. So they just continued on their merry way. And we just, we now laugh about the IB, incident. I mean, we toured schools. Like, it's so silly.
I know it's so easy to just get caught up in like, this is what you do, this is what you do. And then it's like, oh crap, that wasn't what the plan was.
No, I mean, it was crazy. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm going to claim like temporary insanity there.
I always love to hear what kids are up to. So I was hoping that you could share some of the things that your kids are interested in and how they're pursuing them.
Persephone tends to become what she's interested in. And currently she's really into Mario Kart. So after for the Wii. So after she's opened all the courses and characters. So now she started to race the Nintendo Ghosts, beat them. So now she races her own ghosts in order to reduce her time. And it's pretty cool to watch her figure out, how wide to make her turns or where the shortcuts are or whatever, because she does keep beating her own time.
Wow.
She's often in the craft room creating something. As a compliment to her Mario Kart interest, she's made a great Toadette costume, which, if you are friends with me on Facebook, you may have seen.
Yes.
And today, actually, she's wearing her Waluigi outfit.
Oh, awesome.
She rarely wears pants, and she certainly doesn't wear jeans, but she took a couple pairs of jeans that were too small for Olive, hacked them up, sewed them together into a nice skirt, and she's got a purple shirt on, and she's made herself a little purple bow with the Waluigi L. Gamma, really. And so she's wearing that, and she's doing her thing. Her Toadette outfit she made, again, repurposing some clothes and stuff. It's fantastic. And there's lots of perler bead action happens in our house. So I mean, she adds a little one-up mushroom made of perler beads to her outfit, and she's worn like what was it? Other perler beads related to the Mario universe have become part of her accessories. She has a great collection of dolls. My personal favorites don't have any facial features that she does, which I think is very cool. They all wear handmade dresses. One of them even has a vest that she knit herself for it. So she's always making stuff, but currently it's Mario, so she's into that. And there's a racetrack out on our front yard right now made of like a path in leaves. We often mulch the leaves in the fall, but we never rake them up. We haven't gotten around to mulching the leaves yet, so there is a raked path through them. So it's a course out in the front yard right now.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Like a little walking path, right?
Or racing.
Racing. Well, running.
So that's what Seffi's up to. Olive this summer built a bike. Jim, her dad, my husband, had always wanted to build a car. So he finally did. It took him a few years, but, he did it. And Olive has hung out with him during the production. She asked questions. She participated however she could. And one of the things she asked was, how did he get started fabricating? And he said, well, he built a bike, and he had these pictures of this chopper he built when he was a kid. And so she wanted to do that too. So they salvaged together some old bikes that were destined for the dump, cut them up, welded them together, made two-wheeled magic. it was very cool watching her figure out the rake angle, because too small an angle put the handlebars at a weird spot, but too wide and she couldn't take corners, you know. It was very cool. She's always been a bit of a maker. So she got her first set of real tools at 4. Toy tools don't really fix or create things, right? So we bought her real scaled down size tools from IKEA. They're perfect for small hands, but they're not all stereotypically girly, because she does not respond well to that at all. So she's been making stuff. She's got in her room right now a collection of coin operated Lego machines that dispense treats. One is sized for Timbits, another nerd. I think there's one that I'm forgetting, but they have little hoppers where the stuff's loaded up, and then when you insert the dime, that sets off a chain reaction resulting in the treat being dropped out in a little area. And then,
did she build those?
Yeah. And then you can open the chamber, retrieve her coins, do it again, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really great. She built a step to go next to my bed because our tiny dog Sharkbait can't jump up on it. So she, the stair allows the dog to come independently into my bed. It's lovely. So both of them enjoy stage productions. Currently, they are at a drama class right now, actually. An all-day thing. Steffi likes to be on stage, and Olive prefers backstage stuff. That's what they are up to.
That's very cool. Like, even, such a wide range, right? Yeah, no, that's really interesting to see how they each they have like a totally different kind of set of interests, but they're both like actively pursuing them, I think is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like hands-on, actively pursuing them.
We are fortunate that we have the space. We have a dedicated craft room that's stocked with various supplies, and it comes in handy.
How useful. Okay. It is. Question 3. So let's take a bit of a shift here. Unschooling families are definitely choosing to live a different kind of lifestyle, as you've been describing, which is awesome. And that's one in which they prioritize spending time with their children and giving their children the time and space to do things. What that looks like can definitely vary widely by family. Maybe they're living on one income. Maybe they're a single parent. Maybe they're working at home. But typically what comes with that is often a lower family income. So I was thinking maybe we could talk a bit about the challenges that come with that.
The first year when people have a baby often involves some kind of mat leave income, but not everyone goes back to paid work, right? I know I didn't. And I think that's really cool because we actually never had 2 incomes once we had children. So it was definitely an adjustment, like there's less money, but hey, we have a baby. But we never had 2 incomes and a child that got reduced to 1 income and a child. So it was just an entirely different situation than what we previously had. There are challenges, certainly, but I think it's because not so much that there's 1 income, but the challenge is what can you do with an income of that size? Like we try to operate without judgment, just acceptance of our choices and work within that framework that we've created for our family. In our situation, we had both been working, and I was pregnant. I had already arranged that I was going to be leaving at 7 months, like go on to mat leave, because I didn't like being there, and I wanted to be full-time mom, even prenatal full-time mom. And at that time, though, the department that Jim was heading was closed. They closed it. And then he was like, okay, well, forget this high-tech business. We'll go low-tech. We'll just sort of do what we got to do. And it was difficult. Like we panicked a little bit, and we sold our house to move to we moved further west from where we were, where we could get lots of house for not a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And we lived off the proceeds for, however long. And we were all together, and it was great. And we loved it. And then we've done it a few times. We're on our 5th house now. And like Jim will say that he unjobs. Like we have, something, and then he will do whatever, because he likes to make things and do things, but he also doesn't work well within the typical 9 to 5 structure. He's all of us in our family are identified as being on the autism spectrum. So we kind of do things a little different and have different tolerances, I think, than typical people. So that's what we have found works for us, is doing what needs to be done when we need to do it, and then kind of coasting for a bit and then doing something else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. That sounds, very aware of yourselves and of your situation, right?
Yeah, we years ago on breakfast television, actually, we saw a woman who had written a book, who actually encouraged you not to buy it, but instead go rent it from the library. And she was about 35 years old and completely retired. And she had just made sure that she had no debt. And then she would do temp work, stock up on some money, and then quit. And then live off that until she needed some more, take a temp job. And I think we were actually really, really, really inspired by that. Like, you can just sort of take a step sideways, and get off that crazy rat race. And she was doing it. And it was amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. That is very cool.
So
I'm going to have to see if I can figure out who that was so we can share that book.
Our situations certainly are different from this woman's, but that was kind of the same guiding idea, was like, we'll do what needs to be done. And you mentioned a mind shift. It's definitely, there's a mind shift, because you're forced to look at what is truly important.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you want your dollars going?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's about being self-aware and knowing what you want. And we'll get into some more questions. I thought I'll share a bit of our transition too. So I was working and the kids were going to school. You're in Ontario and you'd heard about homeschooling. I hadn't. But so I went back to work. But yeah, my mind shift was happening, as I was seeing the kids in school and searching for something better and something better. I actually left work before I'd heard of homeschooling yet, right? I had, it wasn't working for me. I wanted to spend more time with my kids, even with them being in school. So but as part of the transition, right, as we were trying to figure out how we were going to transition from 2 incomes to 1 income, I took a leave from work. I found out I could take a 1-year leave. I basically kind of had to say, if you don't give me the leave, I'm going to quit, but I would much prefer have the leave, because then I knew I could come back, and I said to them, and then if it doesn't work out, I can come back and work. And they were happy because they didn't want me to leave in the first place. Right. So that's what we did. So, we had that piece. And then I was lucky, or whatever you call it, as in I worked it was Ontario Hydro back then, right? And they were downsizing. And while I was on a leave, they offered a package for people to leave. Yeah. So I managed to take a package about 8 months into it, nice. So then we had a bit more of a nest egg. So we didn't have the backup of being able me to return to the job, but we had this backup, so it's for us anyway, as well. It was like step by step, being aware of the transition and what might help us, backup plans A and B, that we had things that we could do so that, you didn't feel trapped, which leads us nicely into the next question. Yeah, very nicely. I know in my experience, when money challenges arise, fears can quickly create tunnel vision. That's where I was going, because our minds can shout, no, no, can't do that, can't do that. And all of a sudden we feel trapped in our situation. And every time that's happened to me, I found that I really need to actively shift from seeing things through that lens of lack so that I'm open and feeling creative about possibilities. Because, when I feel stuck and fearful, I don't see any possibilities, right? You've got that tunnel vision. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to do this. I have to find a way out of this. And that's all there is. So I was wondering, have you found that kind of shift as well?
It's a necessary shift. The knee-jerk no is really very easy, but it's also so depressing.
Yeah.
It's really sad. So I think creative problem solving is super important. And that's something I remember from my days in school, go off on a special day and, you're in groups and you've been given a task and you quickly realize that each group independently is not going to be able to do the task. You must merge together. And it was always, that was always the goal, creative problem solving. I certainly know that lens of lack though. I find it helpful to think about it in terms of comparison, though. Lack compared to whom, and does it really matter? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sure, my life looks way different than my neighbors or whoever, but so what? Who cares? It doesn't, that is something that I have to keep remembering. It doesn't look the same as everybody else's. It's not the same as everybody else's. But does it matter? No, it really doesn't. Are we homeless? No. That's great. Do we have enough food? Yes. Yeah, and those are the things that I need to think about, because it's really not a great place to be when you're stuck in the lens of lack and everything is terrible. That's not productive at all.
Yeah, I think often I notice when I look back on those times when I was feeling, fearful, to me, it was really, remember when you said that at first, all of a sudden you guys started looking at IB programs, right?
Yes.
Because it's that shame that comes when you are confronted with a conventional expectation, really, I think. And it's that shame piece in that, I'm not doing what's expected. And that I find, for me anyway, that really closes me down when I'm feeling that. And it's that exact shift, remembering why I'm choosing this lifestyle for our family, remembering that I'm prioritizing relationships. And like you said, so what if I don't have those other things? This is what I'm choosing to value more than that, right?
Well, yeah, I just think it's hard to think of lack without it being compared to something. Otherwise, is it even lack?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Maybe that's too philosophical.
It is a mindset thing. Because it's crazy though. It's crazy though, isn't it? The difference when you can shift out of that, the possibilities that you see. It's just amazing.
You feel so different because we are no strangers to financial stress by any means. And, your muscles get tight and you're not sleeping and it's awful. But when, everybody's on the right page and we're like, okay, we're identifying what we want, how, what needs to happen, how we can get there, it feels so good.
I know, and nothing's actually changed.
No,
in the moment, other than your mind, right?
Still sitting there in the living room or whatever. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's important to try to stay there always.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm getting a lot faster at finding myself, noticing when that's happening and shifting. So 5 minutes, but it takes a lot of practice to get there.
For sure. Because the messages are strong that we receive.
Next question. When it comes to conversations with our kids, even with less income, it still doesn't need to be about saying no. that comes from what we were talking about. For me, it's helped to remember not to use money as the first filter when questions come up, but as one of the last ones. Because as we're saying, just saying no shuts down the conversation so much, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It shuts it like completely down.
Mm-hmm.
There's, in fact, no conversation.
Other than please.
I don't have kids who do that, though. So really, it
That's
shuts
true.
it right
Neither
down.
do I. There we go again with the conventions, right?
I certainly see that too many blanket no's, because of a small disposable income, might lead to feelings of inadequacy. Like, I really don't think it would take too long to think, oh, I can't provide X, Y, and Z, so I'm Canadian, y'all. Maybe the kids would be better in school. I'm really, really happy that we're adamant that government schooling is not the best environment for our girls. But if my convictions weren't so strong, I'm sure it would be a huge battle. I mean, that whole conversation would play out in my head incessantly. I know it would, but it's not useful at all.
One of the things that I found really helpful to keep my mindset clear is when I have conversations about money with the kids, or when we're talking about stuff that we're wanting to do or wanting to get or whatever, is that I talk about money very matter of factly, right? Like you're talking about, so that it doesn't, so that you don't feel bad about it. It's just like another constraint. Like, Joseph doesn't really like to go places with lots of crowds, or if we go there, Mike wants to be home, in time to go to karate. Right. It's just one of those other things that meshes in as we're figuring out our path forward. So it's never about, no, we can't do that because.
Right.
It's always, oh, well, this is part of the picture. This is what we have to consider.
If
maybe.
Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe the timeline would be different. If it's something that they wanted to go to now, maybe it might be next time, or,
right.
Whatever it is, but it's never about, nope, sorry, can't do that ever.
Or maybe it's something that the kids themselves are going to need to pitch in for, simply because mom and dad might not have the available funds for whatever it is. If it's important enough, then that's something that they will consider.
Exactly. And discussing it just as here's what the constraints are, leaves that possibility open, right?
Mm-hmm.
As part of things to consider.
That's true. I think it's really all about conversation. I mean, we have conversations all the time. We have dad home so much of the time because we've chosen that. Now, what that means is we don't have a huge ton of disposable income. So we have to make the choices, right, of what's important to our family. We can do this, or we can do these two small things, but not this one big thing, or, whatever. And they are part of that conversation because it affects them. They need to be part of that conversation. I don't think it's fair otherwise.
Exactly. I mean, and, not only fair as in we're these, human beings living together, they also learn so much through those conversations, right? That they'll be able to take with them for the rest of their lives.
Right. Yeah. So.
Right. That's a good skill.
Yeah. Why not? Right. Yeah. They have to. I mean, they have their bank accounts. They know they have money at home. They have money in the bank. They're free to spend it however they like. They're free to save it. It's just, they don't have bills. Fair enough. We do. And we just all kind of work together.
Yeah. No, that's great. This one, with my kids, sometimes it helped to shift our perspective from consumer to DIYer. as we come to know our kids more deeply and understand the why behind their requests, as part of these conversations that we're talking about, we can sometimes help satisfy that deeper motivation more quickly, maybe while we're saving up for the thing. And we can continue to play with the possibilities and figuring out other ways to, in the interim, satisfy their curiosity or what it is they're wanting to accomplish, whatever goal they have. And sometimes it's super fun for them to play with ways to make their own versions of things. That works really well with your kids too, right? Has that been your experience?
Yes, absolutely. And we are, I don't know, however, how different this is from other people, but the way we are, Jim has a background in manufacturing engineering and also fine art. So he can make and do so much. That's just who he is. Left to my own devices, I'd probably go without something, but he's always wondering how he can make stuff happen. So I love that, our girls have him and all his resources and stuff. Want a new bike? Let's make one. Oddly shaped gift to wrap. Let's go through the recycling and make a customized package. Like these, that's not unheard of. That's quite common over here. The girls have made their own board games, videos. Sephi did a DVD of videos to go with their original songs that they've made. I love these sorts of projects. They're really fun. Our family does go through an epic amount of perler beads because we have melted plastic representations of all sorts of things around the house because it's just part of, so they can carry it with them or wear it or get into it. Like, I don't know if it's how conscious it is, but it is how they stay connected to the thing, whatever the thing may be. All have made a collection of Pokeballs from styrofoam spheres and paint, and they're all lined up in her shelf in her room. And this immersion in interest has always been present. They see, although he's not a licensed mechanic, Jim does stuff. I mean, he made a car. He fixes our cars. They see him change the oil, do the brakes, whatever he can do, he does himself. That saves a lot of money. And he does it because he can. I mean, not everybody can, right? But certainly that goes into part of the bigger framework. They see doing stuff for yourself rather than paying somebody else. If you can do it, why not do it yourself? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's just part of how we are. Like, I wish I could knit better. I'd be knitting our clothes, right? Like our sweaters, but everyone has their handmade scarves. Like that. So I think
go ahead.
No, you.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's all, that balance of, like you said, our time, our money, and our skills, and how we want to divide them up. Like, I mean, you could probably be a better knitter if you wanted to spend more time practicing it.
Right.
And if somebody wants to learn how to change the oil in their car, I'm sure there's probably a YouTube video for their car. I remember I used to do it when I was in high school. I would change my own oil and stuff like that. So it all boils down to our choice, right? We can choose how we're going to mesh our time and our money and our skills every single day.
Yes. And it does for us anyways. It does certainly tie into what that leaves available in funds.
Yep.
So, buying a quart, I don't even know. It's not my department. Buying a quart of oil or whatever and some filters and a whatever is far cheaper than taking a vehicle to the garage and spending the shop rate to get it done.
Yep. Oh, and definitely.
And then there's also, hey, look what Dad's doing. There's some, you want to get in on this and see how this works? Here's how it's all there for the taking.
One thing I wanted to mention here too, I thought in the spirit of DIY is, I think one thing to remember is when a child expresses an interest, certainly when people are coming to unschooling, is not to necessarily jump to lessons as your first response, right? As like the best way to nurture an interest, because there's just so many ways to nurture interests that don't come with as much expense. Like I know right now for the last year or so, Michael's been learning guitar through YouTube videos, and not because it's a second choice, but because it's a way that he enjoys and meets the needs that he has right now. When the kids were younger, I remember I rented musical instruments from the local music store for a month or two, just for them to play around with, right? And to see if they were interested before jumping. I think staying away from lessons for a while to help your creative juices start to flow and see these kinds of things is so helpful. Like an interest in dance doesn't mean that you need to run out and sign your child up for dance lessons right away. I mean, you can go videos, books, even maybe just all they want is a costume to dress up in and dance around the living room. Those things aren't second best because we can't afford lessons right now, right? That's that no, don't let the no shut you down. And, oh, gee, now I can't pay for dance lessons, so she can't dance. You know what I mean? There's so many ways to nurture an interest that don't necessarily need a big outlay of cash right up front.
It's true. Just, I don't know, go dancing.
I know.
Have a party. Put on No, it's true. We have instruments around the house, and Sethi has taken a shining to our keyboard. She absolutely resists formal lessons because that's just who she is. She doesn't like that. Our keyboard has a little display, so every time you press a key, it shows you where on the staff it is. And she's able to sit down and look at. We buy her sheet music because that's what she wants. Mario Universe music, for instance, and she'll look at it and figure out where the keys are, and she can match it up to make sure on the little display, and then she will play. She plays in an unorthodox style. Like if you ever have opportunity to see her play the keyboard, like her hands go in like weird way. I don't play, so I can't read music. I don't know how it's supposed to go, but I do know that your elbow doesn't generally stick out in front of you because your hand's backwards, but it works for her.
Yeah.
And lessons, really, she didn't want them in the first place. And at this point, I think it would be really, really hard for her because she's so used to being in her own way. And I can see that somebody might say that was doing a bit of a disservice to her, but she's quite happy and she plays music. And what more do I want, right?
Yeah.
Is she happy playing music? Great. Does she want more? We would then look into it. I know people who could teach this. There's always the phone book, go look them up or whatever, but that actually isn't something she's been interested in. So that's really handy.
You know what I love throughout the call is helpful for people to see, how, because when you say her interest is Mario Kart, right? And people can like, oh my gosh, shouldn't spend so much time. But look at all the different things that she's doing through the lens of Mario Kart, right?
Oh my goodness.
Musics and arts and crafts and all sorts of stuff.
I remember thinking, back in the very early days that my job was not to teach her. It was to help her, like not to give her the answers, but to teach her how to find them. And there was when we had, I don't even know which particular game it was, one of them, Super Mario Brothers Wii, I think it was. She was stuck on a level and having a really hard time with something, and she was doing it over and over and over again. And that, that was fine. That's great. And then I looked over and she was sitting there with the iPad, and she was Googling how to get past whatever the stumbling block was. And I thought, you know what? There, I did my job. Like she's not getting, she's trying and she tried as much as she could on her own. And then when she needed a little help, she knew where to go. And I thought, really, that's terrific. that's it right there. You know, we went on this little kick. There is a curriculum, a history curriculum, the story of the world. It's actually kind of cool. It's got um, there's big activity books that go along with whatever. So we have 3 of the books. We don't do anything formal, but we like going through the activity things.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this race for Mesopotamia or something game, and I watched them. They were playing. We were all playing together. They knew what was going on, and talking about history, it was like, oh, there we go again. Somebody thinks they can, take over the world, and then it gets too big, and then they lose power, and then somebody else does the same thing, and I'm like, you've got this. You know what I mean? Like, you see the patterns, you understand. Like, this is all good. You don't need. I don't know. I just love when I'm aware of those moments that they've got the concept of something.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I mean, and again, we're back to conversations. When you're in conversations with them, the stuff that they know just like floors you sometimes, doesn't it?
It really does. I'm just like, how did there was something the other day, for the life of me, I'm not going to remember what it is. And I was just like, how do you know that? And, Persephone was just like, I just know it. I'm like, okay, very good.
And seeing them put it together, right?
Yeah, no, it's great. Like, there are things, and I'm like, I didn't make that connection.
Exactly.
I'm so happy we're talking because now I know it. Yay.
I know. I learn all the time. Okay, we should probably move on to the next question. I know there were a couple of conventional expectations that I needed to work through over the years. And one of those was that new is better, which led me initially to judge myself as a failure if I couldn't provide those shiny new things. We were talking about the shame a little bit earlier as well. And that's definitely very prevalent in our society, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it's prevalent. I think it's manufactured, and I think it's unnecessary. I like it. It doesn't. Yes, we get all these messages that new and shiny, and look at any advertising or whatever. You're supposed to buy new stuff all the time. Do your part. Keep the economy going. Whatever. And only the best and the newest, whatever, will do. But at the same time, we're kind of encouraged to reduce, reuse, recycle. And
I know.
They don't really go together. It doesn't.
I don't. Why don't they see that? We get so many messages, and yet they never try to seem to notice that they are at odds with each other.
Right. I find it's definitely, again, it's a mind shift, right? Because I can feel terrible that I can't go out and get whatever shiny new bit of shiny that may come across. But really, what's the point of feeling terrible all the time? Because the situation we have chosen, because being together is ultimately what's important for us, so we've chosen this. Why choose to be miserable in it? Like, that also doesn't make any sense. So I find that it's far more gratifying to not spend more money than necessary. Like, it's not, fortunately, it's not too difficult to go from feeling terrible about not being able to provide the latest whatever to being really proud of being able to source what's needed at the best price for quality, right? We live so far outside the norm anyways, we might as well embrace it, right?
And I swear this is, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, Jim and I both grew up along the border in Niagara, and we're out in Eastern Ontario now, but we're still really close to the border with the United States. So sometimes, even though when the dollar's terrible, our dollar, sometimes things are still worth purchasing in the States, even with the exchange. It's better. And it's not an inconvenience for us because we just happen to be here. I mean, it's closer for us to get into Ogdensburg, New York, than to get to the next biggest city, which is only 20 minutes away.
One year we lived in Sarnia, and we had the same thing. We just bip across the bridge. One time my dad came back with a dog.
Yes.
Yay.
So for us, really, it's coming back to conversations and what is really important. Like, there are things that we really, really want to do. Like, we do our utmost to ensure we can attend an event like Camp Shine, for instance, or We Shine, or whatever. There have certainly been years when we haven't been able to make it happen. But, and in those times, I really am sad. But we try our hardest because that is important. Like, the girls would like a Wii U, and one has been desired for a couple of years, but it's never made it to top priority. And like, these are the conversations that happen throughout the year as things come up. And as interestingly, I think, as mine are getting older, they are almost 12 and 14. And for them at this point, it's not even really stuff that they want or lessons. It's they really miss seeing their people, their unschooling people especially. There is actually quite a nice network of unschoolers where we live, but a lot of them happen to be very busy with activities that some are just out of reach financially, and some, my girls just have no desire to have some kind of formal class. I mean, that's just not their thing. But a lot of the people that we know from the greater Shine community, that's what they've been craving. And this year has actually been phenomenal for visits with our friends. And it's something that for a while we thought was kind of out of reach because it's international, and, not everybody lives just right here in New York or whatever. But it actually hasn't been that bad it's not cheap to go and put somebody on a train. It's way cheaper to actually load the car up with gas and just drive and go visit. And now that we've realized that, it's been tremendous. We've had lots of fun visiting this year, and that was a really great thing to discover because it can happen again and again. So yeah, the shiny and new, like, it's true. We can't do everything, Christmas is coming, but what is it that we really want? All of us. And then we have that discussion and what can happen, and they know that, and that's just it is what it is. We could all be upset and miserable about it. We could change something, but that will necessarily shift a dynamic that we've built on purpose. So until such time as we're all on board with that, that's not going to happen. So we just, do our thing. And I'd say we're generally pretty happy people.
Yeah. But the shiny and new thing, I know a lot of my learning and thinking about that was actually from following my kids, right? Because even though I felt that, I didn't place that on them. I was careful to keep my prejudices to myself as I was processing them and thinking them. And, to my kids, things were just things.
Right.
It didn't matter, where they came from. I mean, they loved going to thrift stores and just looking through things, and even just seeing what was there, seeing the old things, seeing, such interesting stuff. We've had a great experience too with like free cycling, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Michael got a trampoline. We got like a full-size trampoline for him. There was an amazing telescope that we got from people who were given it as a gift, I think when he retired, but they never really used it. A dollhouse for Lissy that was no longer enjoyed because their kids had been older. And I know last year, it was probably around this time, Mom came by here and picked up a bunch of our older board games. And she had like 3 or 4 young kids. And she's like, oh, it's like an early Christmas. And she was excited. new doesn't add value to those things, right? Being able to pass things around and exchanging things that are of value so that they always have value to whoever has them in the moment, right?
Absolutely. We get clothes passed to us from people, and that's great. For instance, Steffi got a dress that she wore for quite a while, and then when she outgrew it, she actually cut it up, and that became the vest on her toadette outfit, and that's fantastic. We pass clothes on to other people, and this summer I saw a little girl wearing a little two-piece sort of summery outfit that I recognized from Steffi. Like, I could, at this party, I could trace the people that it went through. And it was really great. And like just a week ago, I saw a Halloween shirt on somebody that was olives, and it was fantastic. And, you know, we get things, the things go. And I kind of feel like I believe that when you pass stuff on, especially if it's not for money, that's my personal belief, you open yourself up to receiving in the same manner. We've like all sorts of things have just come to us when we've really needed it. And I think it's because I feel it has something to do with us passing things on when we don't need them any longer.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I do. I mean, it's amazing what comes. Yeah. When you're open, you need to be open to receiving those things, or, you know, people aren't going to offer. Right.
Well, that's true, but I also don't like, it actually makes me physically ill, the thought of like having a yard sale. It really does. It's a personal thing. It's crazy. I feel judgment. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend it's reasonable, but it is something that I deal with. So I don't like that. I would much rather just give my stuff away to people who will genuinely enjoy it. And if no one's around, donate it. Then try to haggle with somebody over a couple of dollars here and there. I really would. And I think I do think that make people open to, hey, here's some stuff we don't need anymore. Could you use it? And it just sort of, it goes around. You know, bartering's really great too.
Yeah,
for services or things or whatever. Like, I don't know how many people do that still. Like, babysitting, I suppose, sure, you know, trading off things, but I find underused.
Yeah, with my, even, you know, with my business, you know, I barter services and stuff back and forth. We help each other out, you know, whether it's through editing, even with the transcribing the episodes, you know, there's all that element of everybody working together, and I love that, and we just help each other out. There doesn't need to always be a monetary aspect to it.
No, I think that's great. And the more people can do that, I mean, you know, we know people who grow food. And I'm certain that by helping, you help them out, you get some food. Like, you know, that's just how it is. Olive likes to, for a couple of years, she's been on and off woofing at a friend's farm, and she enjoys it. She really likes it, and she does it because she enjoys it, and she wants to learn about the farm and whatever, you know. There's animals, there's also food, veggies and whatever. But she comes home with food, and that's not expected at all on our end. And it's always a total bonus, but it's just, but it, to me, I see it as, it's a recognition. You've come out, you've helped. Here's what we can give you. Because they're not, you know, we're not in a position to pay an 11-year-old to go do whatever. But here you go. And I think those opportunities do exist. It's just a matter of finding them and, you know, working them.
That actually leads nicely into the next question. I had actually written woofing as one of my notes. Because the other conventional expectation was that as a parent, I needed to personally meet all my children's needs. That's another one of my mind shifts. Because at first that has me feeling like I'm failing too, because I have to do this, I have to do this. But then I realized that the things, especially as they're getting older, the things they're wanting to do are totally about them. They're not about me at all. And I can reach out. I don't have to satisfy everything. I can reach out to the local community and the online community, as you were talking about earlier, and find all sorts of creative ways to help them find what they're looking for, accomplish the goals and the things they want to do. So I just was thinking we could talk about that a little bit.
Well, and how perfect, because that's exactly where we are currently.
Yeah, I know. I love how conversations flow.
Like a few months ago, my girls like literally sat me down and said, "We want more. We don't know what that more is, but we want it." Okay, so up until this point, we haven't really had to go outside of our usual day-to-day stuff. It just wasn't necessary, but now they need more. So I've been paying more attention to what's going on at the local Y youth center activities, what's happening at nearby universities or museums. But as it turns out, in our case, formal things isn't necessarily what they want. They wanted their Shine family. So it's been great to figure that out, though, because we've gone through, okay, well, do you want more sports? Because Olive recently gave up soccer. It was this summer was the first summer she hasn't played in years. She didn't want a formal thing. You know, she had wanted, say, karate before, but she found it too loud with the acoustics, and even with earplugs, it was too much for her. So nope, she's tried that a few times, doesn't want to do that again. So we've worked out that they didn't want to join in the dance class. Like, we found all these things that they didn't want to do. But it was people, and that was fantastic, because I realize now we can make happen. And I do feel bad that I didn't realize just how doable it was, because we could have done this a lot longer ago. But I know now. So
learn, right? Yeah.
Live and learn, yes. But yes, but I don't have to. It's true. I don't have to do everything. I need to facilitate. I need to be aware of what's going on. And but I think that would be my job anyway, right? Like, unfortunately, our library is not fantastic where we are. It's very small, and it seems to hardly ever be open. But, you know, they are a library. They do have passes to the museums and things to go to for free, and that's good, because then wandering around there's really no investment except for your gas and time. That might spark something. You know, just sometimes a change of location is helpful to figure out what they might want. It doesn't have to be like little lessons or whatever. The only thing they have a drama that's ongoing right now, a drama class. I mean, they're not involved in drama that's ongoing. But, and a parkour thing once a month with some guys who come in from Kingston.
No, cool.
And that's really fun. But they have identified that what they don't necessarily need more of is one-off things. Like, okay, today we're going to do something special. We're going to go to like the trampoline park or whatever for just one time. That's not what they're looking for.
Yeah.
But it's good to know these things, because
exactly
it is.
And that's back to those conversations, right? You try a little thing and you see, like, you try karate and you see how it goes, and you try soccer and you stay with it for a while, and you know, that's living. That's learning more about ourselves, enjoying what we're doing, figuring out what we don't like, and moving on. And I think, you know, as they start to get a little bit older, sometimes it becomes, sometimes you find like maybe community mentors. Like, I know Michael started spending more and more time at the dojo as he got older, you know, and there were adults and teens there. And, you know, I would be sure to not rush him out the door at the end of class. So, you know, there'd be moms sitting there as the, you know, adult and teen class ended, and they'd be like, come on, you got to get home. I want to, you know, do this, that, or the other thing. But I knew for Michael the value of these connections and the personal contact and hanging out with them. So I would be there like for 45 minutes after the class, just letting him have that time, not rushing him out, because that was the thing that I was supporting, as well as the karate itself,
So here's a funny little story.
Uh-huh.
For years, we had a local Stitch and Bitch group, and it has rotated houses for both. Usually it's whoever had the youngest kid, it would be held at their place because you can't leave, a nursing baby, right?
Yeah.
And one of the members last year or year and a half ago, she started a restaurant in town. And so on our usual Stitch and Bitch night at the beginning, we met there because she could, come out of the kitchen and do whatever. And then the restaurant would close and we were still there. And that was great.
Yeah.
Olive and Sephi, they were like, come on, you got to come home, right? So they were coming to the restaurant, knocking on the door because it was locked. They'd come in and, when are you going home? Like, well, I don't know. I'm not quite done yet. And then Olive, who enjoys sweeping, she started picking up a broom and she was sweeping around in the restaurant. And then she said to me that she really liked it. And do you think she'd be able to come back and do it some other time? And she managed to secure herself a job right there. Twice a week, she would come in and do the floors and whatever. And then and they paid her. And that evolved into one of those nights a week, taking her into the kitchen and cooking with her. Now, she wasn't cooking customers' orders, but they were doing something else. But it was phenomenal. And it just made me think of that, like with the mom saying, come on, we got to go home. And here my kids were coming, going, come on, are you coming home? And we are very sad because the restaurant closed. And so she's, she misses that because she loved doing real work, just like she really liked her real tools when she was 4. Certainly she enjoyed the money coming in. And, we got a letter of reference from the woman who had the restaurant and researching how to do a resume for a kid, really. And because there's other places that she would like to check out. And that's that. And that was all because of the parents saying, come on, let's go home.
Yeah. Yeah, I love those connections. That's very cool. And speaking of connections, I'm going to tie this back. Remember you mentioned the woofing.
Yes.
On the farm. That was because like one of the examples I was wanting to share about, keeping your mind open for possibilities. If you have, say, a child who wants to travel, because I know Lissy was very into travel. I mean, there's just so many more ideas than just think, oh, we need, vacations are expensive. We can't do that. Sorry, you can't travel. I mean, there's a whole world online for travel hacking. Like Chris Gillibo's got a site, and I'm sure there's many more. I know a family from the UK that a few months ago, they packed up their stuff and sold their home, and they're now like house sitting throughout Europe and Asia.
Oh, fantastic.
With their unschooling daughter. There's woofing. I know a couple of teens who've done that, unschooling teens. And as you mentioned, just visiting other unschooling families, and maybe swapping back and forth for extended periods of time, depending on what the kids are looking for, so that they can, explore new cities and new places, just new environments when they're interested in that. So, as we were talking about trying those things out and seeing, what they like about the experience helps you narrow into and helps them learn more about themselves, learn more about what they're interested in trying next. And I mean, it's just fascinating, all the different places you can go if you don't shut yourself down with a no, right?
It's true. I'm actually, one of the things I really love now is when this family who has this farm gets new woofers. I love going to meet them. I love that it's conveniently, it's summer and there's birthdays and in their family and whatever. So there's always gatherings because it is cool. We've met a lot of great people, and it's helpful for me too, just in case this might be in my kids' future, to see all the different people that come through and what it is to them to be woofing. And it's really great. I think it's a phenomenal, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm sort of on the outskirts, but I think it's a great opportunity. perfect way to travel.
Yeah, I know. Lissy, she looked at nannying too at one point,
Right.
and she looked up circuses, like traveling in the summer with a circus.
Wow.
She didn't, end up doing those things, but she learned enough about them. Like there are so many possibilities out there if you start looking, and even finding out about one possibility and researching, finding out that you don't want, but in the forums, in blog comments, people are always mentioning other things. So, it's like going down the rabbit hole, following the
Yes.
trail. This
Yes.
place is,
Oh,
and then you might end up somewhere super cool.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
The internet is phenomenal.
it really is fun. So I thought we would finish up just by brainstorming a bunch of low-cost opportunities, just to try and help people get their creative juices flowing for things that they might be able to find in their community and online. So I'll start. One of the things that you mentioned it before, annual passes.
Yes.
They can be amazing for unschoolers because we get to go those places anytime, right?
Yes, when
Not
it's
just
not busy.
when it's not busy, and stay for as long as we want instead of the buses all lining up at 2:30 because they need to leave.
And so many passes have like a reciprocal agreement with other
Yeah.
places, right? So
Yeah.
my pass for Upper Canada Village is also good for Fort Henry. Or I know some of the museums here, their pass works at certain other ones in the States or whatever.
We did that exactly. We had our science center pass
Mm-hmm.
in Toronto, and the kids loved science centers for 2 or 3 years. We had the pass, and we would go a lot. But when we would travel, we could always get into their science center. So we made it like a little thing. We used to make sure we visited the science center in all the different places that we went to, and we kind of compare them. And a local parks pass, like for us, for the provincial parks in the area.
I was just going to say, our last house, we lived like 3 kilometers from a provincial park. And so every year we got a pass. And that was so awesome because we would just avoid it on weekends.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always time before school gets out and after it goes back in when the weather is phenomenal. And we would literally be me and the girls would be the only 3 people on this beach. It was great.
Yeah, exactly. We kept going back to one, seeing the river through the seasons, and, because it was empty when kids were in school. And our park pass also included, in our area, Black Creek Pioneer Village.
Oh, that's a great
So we would always, we'd go there. I mean, that was one of the stories I've shared. I don't know if I've shared on the podcast. Anyway, so one of the things the kids love to do was playing hide and seek. So we would take this was like before cell phone time. So we would have, those walkie-talkies.
Yes.
And we know there's no cars in Black Creek,
That's
right?
True.
So, we would have walkie-talkies, and we played hide and seek, and they would give us clues, and we would try and find them. And, at some points, because this was when our first couple of years unschooling, I was like, well, here we are, we're going, and we're not going to see all the presentations and all that kind of stuff. But a few months in, they would be able to tell me all about these places. I mean, they would still pick up all this stuff.
I want to know that, by the way.
About the Pioneer
I'm making a note.
So much fun. And they picked up tons of stuff. And it turns out half the people in the buildings knew them.
Excellent.
So yeah, that was always lots of fun. And so basically those first couple of years we had our pass to the parks, our science center. And that was it. We just kept ourselves busy enjoying stuff. And Canada's Wonderland. Yes. Because we could always go, after hours there. The kids, because in the kids section, the parents would leave early to take their kids home, and then we could just they could go ride their hearts out, and we were only 10 minutes away. So yeah, it's finding that mesh between, what your kids enjoy, and there's so many passes and possibilities that way. And we talked about doing it off season and off time outside of school hours. You get so much more out of it.
There's a Facebook group called Unschoolers Seek. And that's
Oh,
really
yeah.
great because you can post, my kid here's the age is interested in whatever, and it's just response after response of, oh, well, have you heard of this, weird little magazine that's on,
Hmm.
archaeology for kids
That
or
is
whatever.
very cool.
It
Because
is.
unschoolers know so many obscure things, right?
Right. So that's
I'll be
that's
sure to
very
share that.
handy. I like that one. We happen to do a lot with Autism Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not necessarily for everybody, but in a situation where you can join a group like that that's applicable, there's so many opportunities, and these are about 95% free, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes for bigger things like Calypso, the water park that's out here by us, or
Yeah.
La Ronde in Montreal, it's a reduced price on the ticket. But usually the stuff is free. So we do a lot of things like that. And our homeschooling sort of collective out here, the thought there's some of them are like, okay, we're going to organize formal classes, which is great. But also it's okay if your kid has an interest in going to the trampoline park, say, this came up just today, you post it there because chances are there's enough interest that you can go with friends and with a group rate, and
Yeah.
that cuts your costs down. So that's handy because it's also more fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
People you know. I think a lot of stuff Groupon, I guess that's helpful.
Yeah.
We're actually doing an escape room next week because of a Groupon.
Oh, cool. I was going to say online streaming services and stuff. We actually got rid of our satellite a
Yes.
couple of months ago. And we didn't frame it as in, oh my gosh, we need to get rid of it to save money. But it was like, well, you know what? We're using more of these streaming services. Let's try it out and see what it's like without it, without the pressure that you can't have this forever. Mm-hmm. That makes it feel like you're seeing it through a lens of lack. Oh my God, now I don't have this, but I wonder what it's like without it, and playing around. And that's been fine.
I didn't even think of that, but yeah, we got rid of cable a while back, and then we were just using Netflix, which was great. Mm-hmm. And then we actually ended up ditching Netflix and we got a Raspberry Pi. And so we've been streaming everything.
Streaming that way. Yep. We have that too. That's my husband's hobby. He loves all that electronic stuff and figuring that stuff out. So, that's where he spends a lot of our time. So we have some pretty fancy networks and servers and electronic gadgets. Yeah, no, I mean, and we've talked about YouTube and all tons of there's tons of free stuff online. Yeah, the TEDx talks. There's tons and tons of that. I was talking about as they're getting older too, and you mentioned that volunteering at places that they're curious about. That gets them some experience and they enjoy their time, and people get to know them too, and sometimes it turns into bigger opportunities, right? Absolutely.
Yes, that's quite true.
Mm-hmm. My kids were amazing eBay shoppers.
Yeah, we were good at that.
For very early on, they enjoyed the research, figuring it out, and finding good deals almost as much as getting the thing.
You have to be careful because we have a couple of desktops set up side by side. That's what the girls use. And Tim and I have laptops, but both of our laptops are currently they're riddled with viruses, and we've just let it go because we each have our phones. Plus, there's 2 other desktops, right? So, I mean, we're not really short. We don't actually need 4 fully functioning, whatever. Anyways, the computer I'm at right now is Olive's, really, and that's where a lot of stuff gets done. So we have been, Christmas is coming, her birthday is coming. We've been looking at eBay things, shopping around. Yeah. But of course, now that tailors all the ads, right, for everything you've been looking at. So she can be, doing whatever. And then, the other day she came and she's like, I saw this thing, there's an auction ending in like 2 hours, and there was this great Pokemon thing, and it's like, oh man, we're gonna have to cover our tracks. Like, use a different computer. Yes.
Yes,
We're
that
good
is
eBay
definitely
shoppers too.
I love that. I love that.
We need to sort that out.
Yeah. One other thing I had here, besides we already mentioned like thrift stores and free cycle and swaps, and there's so much that out there. The other thing that we had a lot of fun with for over the years is, talking about making, was a lot of baking and making foods and stuff, and just spending a lot of fun time figuring that out. I can still make really awesome peanut butter cups.
Fantastic. We do bake. We do bake, and I've enjoyed that we've had like a cookie exchange for the past few years. So we get together, and you're making like 12 dozen cookies to pass out, and then you get them as well. But I never even really thought about that. See, this is so good talking to you. You're saying things that we do that I never actually even thought of. But yes, here's your way to get some nice treats. It's low cost. It's fun.
Exactly. That's the thing. Again, when you're not seeing it as lack, it's fun.
It is. Yeah.
It's so much fun.
And really, I mean, there's a bit of a high when you get the thing and you have spent a fraction of what it is brand new in whatever big box store. I really enjoy that. I mean, sure, some people might go like, oh, you're just really cheap. On the other hand, I'm just like, sure, but I still saved like $350, so whatever, right?
This is my priority right now. Exactly. I'm meeting my goals in the way that I want to meet them, right?
We have never owned a brand new car. We've never leased it. We've always had used cars, which means we've paid for them outright. So we've never had like a car loan ever. And I think that's huge because when I look at the ads and stuff, like that's hundreds of dollars a month people are paying for the privilege of driving a brand new car, which depending on what you're doing, that might be important. But for us, it really isn't. And that's a huge expense that we don't have. And I'm really grateful we don't have.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, I must say thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, Glenna. That was so much fun.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. And before we go, where's the best place for people to connect with you online?
Oh, probably Facebook, actually.
Oh,
it's my name. It's me. I don't think there are others of me with my name, actually.
Oh,
I don't think I could be mixed up with somebody else.
Yeah, I don't think so. and I'll put a link there too in the show notes so that people can connect. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. You might also like the backlist episodes at livingjoyfully.ca/podcast. You can also get your free Exploring Unschooling ebook at livingjoyfully.ca/exploring unschooling. If you'd like to connect, you can also find me on Facebook at Living Joyfully. Until next time, have fun living and learning with your family.